The unspoken chapter, a silent beginning. Every man who appears unshakable, every figure whose presence commands attention, carries within him a chapter no one ever reads, a chapter written not in ink, but in silence, etched in moments of doubt, fear, and quiet suffering. It is the story of what is hidden, the story that cannot be spoken without unraveling the carefully constructed armor of strength. And yet it is this hidden chapter that often shapes everything else about the man, his decisions, his actions, his very essence. History, literature, and mythology are filled with these silent testimonies. Consider Odysseus, the cunning hero of Homeric tales, celebrated for his resilience and ingenuity. Yet behind his legendary journey lies a quieter, almost imperceptible struggle. Grief for the friends and family he leaves behind, the personal sacrifices invisible to the eyes of the world. Or take Winston Churchill, remembered as the stalwart voice of a nation at war, his steely resolve immortalized in speeches and photographs. Few glimpse the emotional fragility beneath, the insomnia, the self-doubt, the private despair that he bore in silence, away from public scrutiny. These examples are not anomalies, they are archetypes. The unspoken chapter is universal, a hidden backbone beneath every persona of apparent invincibility. The paradox is simple, yet profound. Strength often walks hand in hand with silence. Society venerates power, resilience, and decisiveness, yet it rarely honors the invisible labor of the mind, the private battles fought in solitude, the fears suppressed, the losses endured without acknowledgement. These men become masters not only of the external world, but of themselves, navigating a labyrinth of inner turbulence that few will ever perceive. And the cost of this mastery is rarely told. Relationships frayed, vulnerabilities masked, the constant pressure to maintain the illusion of control. This is the stage upon which our exploration begins. Here, the viewer is invited to peer into the architecture of the human psyche, to understand how strength is cultivated in shadows, and to consider the social forces that demand silence. It is a space both intimate and unsettling, where admiration and empathy intersect, and where curiosity becomes unavoidable. By examining the hidden chapters of those we revere, we confront a question we often resist. What are the untold stories that shape every face of power, every act of courage, every decision that defines a man? In this silent beginning, the journey is set, a journey through concealed pain, through the architecture of resilience, through the paradoxical beauty of strength and vulnerability intertwined. It is an invitation to witness what lies beneath, to understand that the most compelling stories are often those that are never told aloud. The making of strength, pain, isolation, and choice. Strength is rarely born in comfort. It emerges from the quiet crucible of hardship, forged in moments when the world offers no reprieve, and the only companion is one's own inner voice. Every man who carries an unspoken chapter has lived through these formative trials, encounters that leave scars invisible to the eye, but indelibly etched on the psyche. Pain is not incidental. It is the raw material from which resilience is sculpted. Isolation is not merely a circumstance. It is often the incubator of clarity, the space where a man confronts himself without distraction, without the comforting illusions offered by others. Consider the boy who grows up under the weight of expectation, neglected affection, or relentless hardship. Each setback, each silent wound, compounds, teaching lessons that are never taught in classrooms. Endurance, patience, the quiet mastery of emotions, the ability to act decisively under pressure. Similarly, the young man who experiences betrayal or loss learns early that the world is both unforgiving and indifferent. These experiences shape not only character but the very architecture of thought. A mind honed by adversity becomes adept at calculation, at self-regulation, at navigating complexity without reliance on external validation. Here, strength and solitude become inseparable partners. Psychology reveals that much of this process is unconscious. Human beings are wired to adapt, to survive, to internalize coping mechanisms. Emotional suppression, once seen merely as stoicism, becomes a tool for strategic endurance. A man learns to compartmentalize, to place fear, grief, or despair behind layers of intentional thought, using silence as a shield and as a source of latent power. Society reinforces this pattern. Vulnerability in men is often misread as weakness, and thus the social environment rewards concealment and self-reliance. Strength in this sense is not simply a personal choice. It is a negotiated response between the self and the world, but it is also a conscious choice. Every man who carries a hidden chapter decides, moment by moment, what to reveal and what to guard. Each act of composure in public, each strategic display of control reflects a negotiation between the desire for connection and the imperative to protect oneself. Choosing silence is not passive, it is deliberate, a recognition that exposure can be costly, that the world often misunderstands or exploits vulnerability. In these quiet decisions, the foundation of enduring strength is laid. Pain, isolation, and choice converge to create an individual who moves through the world with both precision and subtlety, whose presence commands attention without a single word of explanation. By understanding the origins of strength, the audience is invited to see resilience not as a heroic accident, but as a carefully constructed interior world. It is the product of experiences endured alone, of decisions made under pressure, and of lessons learned in the shadows. And while these men may appear unflappable, it is the unseen, unspoken labor of their minds and hearts that truly defines them. Every action, every decision, every moment of courage is tethered to the silent chapters that remain unspoken but ever present. The price of silence, shadows behind the armor. Strength carries a cost. Every man who conceals a chapter of his life pays a price, and often the toll is invisible to the world. The public sees confidence, decisiveness, an unyielding resolve. What they rarely see is the strain, the quiet exhaustion, and the emotional solitude that accompany such mastery. Silence, while protective, is also isolating. It erects walls not only around the man's vulnerability, but sometimes around his very relationships, leaving him distant even from those who wish to reach him. The consequences of carrying hidden chapters are profound. Emotional suppression, once a tool for survival, can manifest as alienation or internal tension. A man who hides grief, fear, or regret cannot fully share joy or intimacy. The cost of appearing invulnerable is often the inability to connect authentically. History offers countless examples: leaders whose brilliance was shadowed by private despair, innovators whose vision demanded personal sacrifice, and warriors whose victories concealed inner torment. Napoleon Bonaparte, for instance, projected authority and strategic genius, Yet he endured chronic insecurity and relentless self-criticism that few ever glimpsed. These unseen struggles shape not only personality but decisions, influencing the world in ways the man himself may never acknowledge. Society, too, compounds the burden. Cultural norms glorify strength but stigmatize vulnerability, especially in men. Stoicism is admired but sorrow is scrutinized. In a world where weakness is often equated with failure, silence becomes both a shield and a sentence. The strong man must navigate this duality, presenting a facade of control while wrestling with the consequences of his concealed chapters. This tension is not merely personal, it is societal, a reflection of the structures that demand performance while punishing authenticity. Yet there is a paradox here. The very silence that isolates also produces depth, wisdom, and insight. The man who endures without complaint observes the world from a vantage point few occupy. He understands the fragility of human nature, the weight of responsibility, and the subtle currents that guide behavior. But this insight comes at a personal cost. Loneliness, the erosion of effortless connection, and the constant vigilance required to maintain composure. Every decision, every relationship, and every achievement is informed not just by ability, but by the hidden chapters that shape perception, judgment, and action. By exploring the shadows behind the armor, the audience begins to grasp the profound truth. Strength is inseparable from sacrifice, and power often comes paired with solitude. Understanding this cost is essential to understanding the man himself. Beyond the public persona, beyond the accomplishments, lies a hidden terrain of struggle, reflection, and resilience. Territory that few are allowed to witness, yet which defines every moment of visible greatness. In this shadow, the unspoken chapter asserts its presence, quietly shaping destiny. Historical echoes, strength through the ages. The unspoken chapter is not a modern phenomenon. Across centuries, every figure celebrated for strength, intellectual, political, or martial, has carried a hidden interior life. History, when examined closely, reveals a pattern. Those who project power and resilience often do so while wrestling with unseen struggles, private doubts, and moments of profound vulnerability. To understand the essence of strength, we must look beyond the public achievements and into the silent corridors of their lives. Consider Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, whose name is synonymous with Stoicism. His meditations reveal a man deeply aware of mortality, the fragility of human nature, and the weight of his responsibilities. Publicly, he was a decisive leader, a military strategist, and a symbol of authority. Privately, he grappled with grief, self-doubt, and the isolation inherent in leadership. His journals, written for himself and no one else, form a silent testimony. The strongest men often carry burdens that their power can neither erase nor conceal. Leonardo da Vinci provides another lens. Celebrated as a genius across art, science, and invention, his notebooks tell a story of endless curiosity but also of perpetual incompleteness. His brilliance was inseparable from frustration, obsession, and moments of self-reproach. Even in the light of recognition and fame, he wrestled with the internal pressures of mastery, an unspoken chapter that shaped both his creativity and his solitude. These examples illuminate a timeless truth. The unspoken chapter transcends era, geography, and domain, from samurai of feudal Japan who bore the weight of honor and ritualized duty, to revolutionary leaders navigating clandestine struggles for survival. History is replete with individuals whose outward displays of strength conceal labyrinths of inner challenge. Each era's strongest men share a paradoxical experience. They are both admired and isolated, revered and misunderstood, visible and profoundly hidden. Philosophically, this historical perspective underscores a deeper insight. Human strength is often relational, defined not only by what is achieved, but by what is endured quietly. The armor of fortitude is forged in private, tempered by adversity, and maintained by discipline, reflection, and, at times, enforced solitude. The unspoken chapter is both a crucible and a mirror, reflecting the universal human experience of struggle, resilience, and the often invisible cost of mastery. By tracing these echoes through history, the audience begins to recognize a continuity that links the past with the present. Modern examples, CEOs, intellectuals, public figures, are not anomalies, but inheritors of a legacy defined as much by private endurance as by public accomplishment. In observing the lives of those who came before, we gain context for understanding why silence accompanies strength, and why the most extraordinary individuals are often defined not just by their actions, but by the chapters they never reveal. The lesson is profound. Strength is timeless, but it is inseparable from hidden struggle. To witness greatness fully, one must acknowledge what remains concealed, for it is in these silent struggles that the true measure of a man's resilience, insight, and character emerges. Across history, the strongest men have always carried chapters they do not speak about, and it is within these shadows that their humanity is most deeply revealed. Modern mirrors, the invisible burden today. The unspoken chapter is no longer confined to kings, philosophers, or warriors of the past. In today's world, it takes on new forms, shaped by modern pressures, digital scrutiny, and the relentless pace of life. Every public figure, every high achiever, every man who seems untouchable carries hidden burdens. In an era where visibility is constant and perception can eclipse reality, the cost of maintaining strength and silence has never been higher. Consider entrepreneurs and CEOs lauded for innovation and decisiveness. Behind their curated public images lies a world of doubt, anxiety, and relentless pressure. The decisions that inspire admiration often come at the expense of personal peace. Emotional exhaustion, insomnia, and isolation are common, yet rarely discussed. The world sees the success, the resilience, the unflappable demeanor, but seldom the private negotiations, the moments of fear, or the silent sacrifices that made it possible. Social media amplifies this burden. The expectation to perform, to be unshakable, to display only triumph, transforms strength into spectacle. Vulnerability becomes risky. Missteps are amplified and scrutinized. In this environment, silence becomes both a shield and a necessity. Every hidden chapter is guarded with meticulous care, because exposure carries consequences not just for reputation but for influence, opportunities, and personal safety. Strength, in the modern mirror, demands constant performance under public observation. Mental health data confirms what experience suggests. High achievers are more prone to stress, burnout, and depression than the average population. Their success is inseparable from the internal labor that remains invisible to observers. This psychological tension mirrors historical patterns. The strong have always carried burdens others cannot see, but now the audience is global, instantaneous, and unforgiving. The unspoken chapter is simultaneously private and public, creating a pressure unique to contemporary life. Yet paradoxically, this silence also shapes insight. The men who navigate these modern pressures develop a keen understanding of human behavior, systems of power, and social dynamics. Their hidden chapters give rise to wisdom, strategy, and the capacity to act decisively when circumstances demand. The lessons are invisible to outsiders, but they define the trajectory of influence, leadership, and creativity. Silence becomes not just a defense mechanism, but a crucible in which modern resilience is forged. By examining the invisible burdens of today, the audience sees continuity across time. The challenges of strength may evolve, but the essential paradox remains. Strength commands respect, yet conceals struggle. Visibility invites admiration, yet magnifies isolation. Modern men carry the same unspoken chapters as their historical counterparts, but in a landscape intensified by global scrutiny, constant connectivity, and ever-present expectation. Understanding this dynamic is crucial. It allows us to appreciate that the most admired figures are never as simple as they appear. Every public victory, every calculated move is tethered to unseen sacrifices, hidden fears, and private lessons learned in silence. The modern mirror reveals a timeless truth. While society may honor strength, it rarely honors the price paid to attain it. And it is in this invisible burden, carried silently by those who endure, that the essence of contemporary resilience and its profound cost emerges. The psychology of the hidden chapter. To understand why strong men carry unspoken chapters, we must step inside the mind. The psychology of the hidden chapter is complex, interweaving survival mechanisms, emotional regulation, and identity formation. Strength is not merely physical or circumstantial, it is profoundly mental, sculpted by experience, reflection, and the deliberate choice to conceal vulnerability. The silent chapters are a form of cognitive architecture designed to preserve control, maintain composure, and navigate a world that often misunderstands emotional openness. Defense mechanisms are central to this process. Compartmentalization allows men to separate trauma, fear, or grief from the tasks of daily life. Emotional suppression, while often criticized as stoicism, serves a practical purpose. It enables decision-making under pressure without interference from unresolved pain. A man who has learned to internalize his struggles gains not only composure but also strategic clarity. The hidden chapter, in essence, is both a protective measure and a reservoir of power containing the lessons and resilience born from adversity. Neuroscience provides further insight. The brain adapts to prolonged stress by strengthening circuits associated with regulation and self-control. The capacity to endure uncertainty, to remain calm under duress, and to act decisively is often rooted in repeated exposure to challenges that remain private. The mind becomes a laboratory, testing limits, rehearsing responses, and storing experiential wisdom. These hidden experiences shape behavior, often more profoundly than the moments that are celebrated publicly. Strength is thus inseparable from these silent rehearsals, these private confrontations with fear and doubt. Identity formation is another key factor. Men who carry unspoken chapters construct their public persona carefully, balancing authenticity with protection. The persona is both mask and mirror. It conceals vulnerability while projecting authority. Every interaction, every display of control is informed by the hidden chapter. The choices made, what to reveal, what to guard, reflect a sophisticated understanding of social dynamics, self-preservation, and human perception. The unspoken chapter is therefore not an absence of experience. It is a deliberate shaping of presence, a curated internal narrative that dictates how the world is engaged. Yet the hidden chapter is not merely functional, it is profoundly shaping of character. The silence produces introspection, insight, and moral discernment. A man who has confronted his fears privately gains perspective that cannot be taught or imposed. He learns patience, empathy, and the value of timing. These lessons, while invisible, govern decisions, relationships, and actions, revealing a depth that is imperceptible to casual observation, but critical to true strength. In exploring the psychology of the hidden chapter, the audience begins to recognize a recurring theme. The strongest men are not those who exhibit invulnerability, but those who master the interior landscape of their own minds. Their resilience is cultivated, their composure intentional, and their wisdom forged in private. The hidden chapter is both the source of power and the cost of mastery, a paradox that defines the essence of human strength and underscores why some stories, no matter how profound, remain untold. Lessons from the silent struggle. Wisdom beyond words. The silent struggle, carried in private and often unseen, imparts lessons that transcend conventional wisdom. Every hidden chapter contains insights forged in the crucible of adversity, wisdom earned not through instruction, but through lived experience. These lessons are subtle, profound, and often counterintuitive. Strength is inseparable from vulnerability, resilience is inseparable from reflection, and mastery is inseparable from the acceptance of solitude. Men who endure quietly develop a perspective on life that outsiders rarely perceive. They understand that failure is a teacher, not a sentence, that pain can be transformative, and that silence can be more powerful than words. Every trial endured without complaint sharpens judgment, cultivates patience, and fosters discernment. These are not superficial or immediate benefits. They are the cumulative products of countless private decisions, small acts of self-discipline, and moments of moral reckoning that remain unrecorded and uncelebrated. Historical examples illustrate this principle vividly. Abraham Lincoln, often hailed as a paragon of leadership, carried immense personal grief, political isolation, and self-doubt. His unspoken struggles shaped decisions that would define a nation. Similarly, Nikola Tesla's brilliance was inseparable from loneliness, unfulfilled ambition, and relentless self-discipline. In both cases, the hidden chapters were not weaknesses to be overcome, but engines of insight and innovation. The silence of struggle does not diminish strength, it refines it. The lessons from these silent struggles extend beyond extraordinary individuals. They speak to the human condition itself, the necessity of introspection, the value of resilience, and the importance of cultivating inner resources in a world that often undervalues subtlety and depth. By embracing the invisible labor of the mind, a man learns to navigate uncertainty, act with precision, and maintain integrity even when external recognition is absent. Strength becomes not a public display, but a private mastery of circumstance, choice, and self-awareness. Moreover, these lessons reveal a paradoxical truth. The very chapters that isolate can also illuminate. Solitude teaches empathy. Struggle cultivates insight. Restraint develops authority. The man who understands his own hidden depths perceives the hidden depths in others. This quiet wisdom, often invisible to observers, defines the most enduring forms of influence, leadership, and human connection. It is the product of a life lived with vigilance, reflection, and uncompromising honesty with oneself, qualities rarely visible but universally potent. In recognizing the power of the silent struggle, the audience is invited to reconsider their own perceptions of strength. True mastery lies not in what is flaunted, but in what is endured, understood, and integrated quietly. Every unspoken chapter, every concealed hardship is a source of insight that can shape thought, behavior, and destiny. The lessons beyond words are the essence of human resilience, the hidden wisdom that transforms struggle into strength and silence into enduring clarity. The universal mirror, seeing yourself in silence. The unspoken chapters of others serve as mirrors for our own hidden struggles. As we explore the concealed burdens of those who seem unshakable, we are confronted with a reflection of our own inner lives. Strength, resilience, and mastery are not exclusive to historical figures or public icons. They exist in varying forms within each of us, shaped by the battles we endure privately and the chapters we choose not to share. This mirror is both revealing and unsettling. It forces recognition of the parts of ourselves that are often suppressed, the doubts we hide, the grief we conceal, the fears we quietly navigate. In observing the silent labor of others, we become aware of the universality of struggle. We see that the effort to maintain composure, to act with discipline, and to preserve dignity is not limited to extraordinary men, but is woven into the fabric of human experience. Strength is a practice cultivated through reflection, endurance, and the deliberate shaping of our inner worlds. The universality of these hidden chapters challenges societal assumptions. We often admire external achievement, public authority, or visible confidence without considering the invisible effort and private sacrifice behind it. By turning the lens inward, the audience is prompted to ask, what are the chapters I do not speak about? What burdens have I carried silently? And how have they shaped my choices, character, and perception of the world? The answer is rarely simple, but it is always revealing. There is also profound empowerment in this reflection. Recognizing our own hidden chapters allows for acceptance, integration, and ultimately a more authentic form of strength. We learn that silence is not inherently weakness, that introspection can be a source of clarity, and that unspoken struggles do not diminish worth or agency. In fact, the private work of endurance, reflection, and self-mastery often yields the most profound forms of insight, creativity, and influence. Furthermore, the universal mirror demonstrates the interconnectedness of human experience. Each concealed chapter is a testament to resilience, a quiet acknowledgement that struggle is inevitable and that the strength to endure is cultivated in solitude. By seeing ourselves reflected in these hidden stories, we gain empathy for others and for our own complexities. We come to understand that the human condition is defined as much by what is endured privately as by what is displayed publicly. In this sense, the silent chapters of others are not merely observations, they are invitations. They invite us to confront our own hidden struggles, to recognize the resilience within, and to embrace the paradox that strength is inseparable from vulnerability. The unspoken chapters we witness become guides, reflecting both the cost of endurance and the potential for profound personal mastery. By looking into this mirror, the audience is led to see that the essence of strength is universal, intimate, and quietly transformative. Conclusion: owning the unspoken. In the end, the unspoken chapter is not a burden to be hidden forever, nor a weakness to be ashamed of. It is a defining element of human strength, a quiet testament to endurance, resilience, and self-mastery. Every man who carries a hidden chapter does so not because he desires isolation, but because he has learned the power of discretion, the value of reflection, and the transformative potential of private struggle. Owning the unspoken is not about exhibition. It is about acknowledgement, integration, and understanding. Throughout history and across the modern landscape, we have seen that strength is inseparable from its hidden counterpart. The battles endured silently, the moments of doubt never voiced, and the grief never shared shape decisions, forge character, and cultivate insight. A man's true power is often measured less by public recognition than by the depth of the private trials he has weathered. To own the unspoken is to recognize this truth and to carry it without apology, with integrity, and with awareness. This ownership carries liberation. When the unspoken is accepted as part of one's identity, it no longer constrains, isolates, or defines relationships through fear. Silence transforms from a prison into a sanctuary, a space where insight, resilience, and personal authority grow unhindered. The hidden chapters cease to be liabilities and become sources of wisdom, perspective, and strategy. They are private engines that drive public action, unseen yet indispensable. Moreover, the unspoken chapter is a bridge connecting private understanding with universal insight. It teaches that struggle, vulnerability, and endurance are not failures, but necessary components of profound growth. The men who have mastered this dynamic illuminate a path for others to carry one's hidden chapters with dignity, to learn from them without being consumed, and to recognize that the depth of human experience often resides where words cannot reach. Strength is not merely the avoidance of weakness, it is the conscious integration of one's full interior life, both spoken and unspoken. As the journey concludes, the audience is left with a simple yet transformative understanding. Every man who seems invincible has stories he cannot share, yet it is precisely these stories that define him. The true measure of power lies not in the absence of struggle, but in the mastery of it, not in what is visible to the world, but in what is endured and integrated silently. To witness this is to grasp a profound truth about human nature. The greatest strength is often quiet, the most enduring wisdom unspoken, and the most transformative journeys invisible. Owning the unspoken is a declaration of self-sovereignty, a recognition that the chapters we never share do not diminish us, but instead shape us into the men we become. And in that quiet ownership lies a form of power far more enduring, profound, and universal than any that the world can measure.